And Sharon, I'm going to give you. Go ahead, tell us what this is about.
Okay, this is set during the First World War, and the 1917 of the title is the year. And this was the year that the German army retreated to what was became known as the Hindenburg Line. But when they first started, because they built the fortifications behind their current lines, because their front line was so vast, it was stretching them very thin, and so they did a strategic withdrawal to the Hindenburg Line. And so basically, we're dropped right in the middle of this when the Allies, the British and the Allies, don't know what's going on. They just see the Germans retreating,
Yeah.
and some of the commanders along the front line think, "Hey, we've got them on the run," and they decide to do a big push. And our story starts basically with two Lance Corporals Blake and Schofield, when they're given orders to take a message to one of these regiments that's making this big push to say, actually, they're not in retreat. They've just retreated to another line. And if you attack them, you are going to find yourself in a whole heap of horrible trouble. And so we're sending you orders, this impossible order, to go and see if you can halt this planned attack, and they've got basically something like 12 hours in which to do it.
Yeah.
And part of this mission to fulfill these orders is to cross a part of no man's land, to go into one of these towns that has been occupied by the Germans, and to find their new front line on the other side of this battle, basically. And so that's what our story is. It's set over the course of one day, and you follow these two Lance Corporals as they set off from their British trenches and then try to find their way to the new front line.
You see, now, Sharon, this is why I asked you to do this, because we know that, we will get like the historical context, because that was going to be my first question, because I know that your family was quite involved in, I think, both world wars, and so you know quite a lot about that and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much, Sharon. And now, Sean, I'm going to hand over to you, because I know you like your war movies, and you tend to watch all these things for things like authenticity and, have they got that right, and have the blah 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 Harriers got the right hat on.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So I'll hand it over to you for that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that point, it is pucker. Everything is pucker, even down to the dog tags being Bakelite and octagonal, and not your typical like American ones. So, I mean, a lot of I couldn't really fault anything in the way of equipment and all that.
Yeah.
There's one thing I thought they might have during that time. They obviously had motorcycles, and they probably would have sent a dispatch rider around. But I totally forgive that, because they might have done two or three things. But to me, this film wasn't really a war film. It was more of a journey. It was a journey. If you think of all and how it was shot, and so many references to Apocalypse Now. Did you at the beginning?
Well, I'm not an Apocalypse Now fan. So
Kilgore, and the bit when he's in the town and there's it's all like psychedelic and
all the fire and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
He's got hit and all that. That reminded me of the Dolan Bridge, and but at the beginning he says he actually calls twice. It's mentioned Kilgore. Well, Kilgore is Robert Duvall's character, and he's like a private. Oh, what am I going to do with you, Kilgore? So it was like, whoa! I've seen this twice now.
Oh, wow.
Because, and I can't fault anything to do with equipment, armor. Maybe the planes were a bit strange, but it was just the way it was shot. It was absolutely incredible how it was shot. It was just like,
all right,
wow, this is a marvelous piece of filmmaking. Filmmaking at its best.
All right, so you just mentioned how it was shot, and a big thing was made about the fact that this whole film is shot, and it's made to look as if the entire film is in one shot. So you mentioned Sharon, you mentioned Schofield and Blake, and they're pretty much on screen for the end. Like you follow them. If it's not happening with them, you don't know about it, and so they're on screen for the whole thing. So I think Dean Charles Chapman and especially George Mackay are brilliant in this. But Sharon, okay, you told us what the film was about. What did you think about the film? Sean has already waxed lyrical.
I loved it. I thought it was really good. I think for me, it didn't flag at all. You were with them the whole time. Because when I first read about this, the fact that it's like this one's almost like a long tracking shot, they have these very long takes. I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I like that. But actually, I didn't even notice it beyond the first walk through the trenches. You think, hang on, this is a bit different. And then as you get into the rhythm of it, you don't even notice it.
That crazy scene was incredible.
Yeah, the fact that you don't ever lose sight of them. They're either in front of you or you're in front of them. They're either walking towards the camera or the camera's following them. So you never lose sight of our main characters.
Yeah.
And when you do, you know something awful is going to happen because you normally have one of them. So one of them is always on camera, and so sometimes the other one is not. And you hear things and you don't see it because you're like one of the corporals, is that you only see what they see. Yeah. I thought it was a great film. It had me completely engrossed. And I was with them. I was moved by it. I was engrossed by it. I loved it. My only quibble was some of the officers were a bit sweary. I mean, I know that sort of stuff because you say all my family were sort of military. They all served their time. Yeah. All of them. And my family are just not a swearing family, even the old soldiers. The strongest my dad ever said was thundering. If he got really cross, he'd that thundering nuisance. And he would never, ever swear. None of my uncles ever swore. So I find it a bit like when they say, all these old soldiers, they all swear. It's like, my family didn't. Well, but that's my only quibble because I don't like that. And I think, well, hang on, my experience of old soldiers is that they don't swear.
They probably never do with family or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'd be exactly the same with that because they had certain standards, certain values. But if there was ever out in a group, trust me, they swear. Even the paragons that people think the paragons of virtue swear.
Oh, okay.
I want to say that my dad didn't.
Oh, well, okay. Right. That's fair enough then. Yeah. So, anyway, because, there probably is people like that. But even, as I say, when, I don't know, call it a man's world or whatever. But so it's like me, I can be both ways if I want to be.
Okay.
But that's my only tiny quibble. One of them, I just thought, hang on a minute, there's an awful lot of effing and jeffing going on here. Right, When all the books I've read about it, I mean, they may filter it for a different audience, but I've read so many books and they weren't that swearing because the culture at the time wasn't part of the culture the way it is now. So that was just my tiny little quibble that sort of would take me out of the film in some ways because I was thinking, oh, that's very, very, But that's just my only tiny quibble. But I couldn't fault the actual film.
I don't think Mr. Darcy swore, did he?
Okay,
no.
Okay, guys. We technically speaking, we're out of time to talk about this.
Or are you sure? Can't we give this one a bit longer and I'll cut down on Bombshell or something?
We can cut down on.
What did you think, Tosin? What did you think?
What did I think? Well, I think you guys might have seen it on Facebook, but I came out with the film, and the first thing I wrote is, okay, this is the first film that I have seen in the last year that made me immediately think, okay, that deserves the Oscar. Because I know the obviously I'm into filmmaking and I do a very, 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 very low level stuff of that for a living, but the technical stuff to make this film, you're like, how the heck did they do this? And so there's a bit of where I'm just watching them going, oh my God. And there's a bit where you just realize we haven't cut. It's just been like one shot. There's one particular bit where they go into like a sort of trench. They go into a trench and there's like a massive puddle at the bottom of the trench and the camera follows them into the trench. Then it goes along the water as they are walking along the side and it comes back up the other side. And I'm like,
that's what I was talking about, the shell crater. Shell crater, that was amazing.
I just kind of like, what, how on earth are they? And the fact, and I think that usually when you have a film that says, like I remember there was a film called Lady in the Lake made in the sort of black and white MGM Gold Glory era. And the thing about that was that it's all done from a first person perspective. So the entire film is done from the point of view of this detective. And I remember that after a while, it feels a bit gimmicky and you're like, but in this film, they managed to have a gimmick, if you want, that does not feel like a gimmick. That actually has a point to it. And like you said, Sharon, it's like you're there, like you're one of the privates in there as they're going through all this stuff. And it ends up being quite immersive. And for something that's like, that is essentially one shot or made to look like it's one shot, I was surprised at how much they got into it. I was like, the the bit where he's in the water, how did you do that? And the bit where everything is blowing up around him, that's all they watch. And then he goes down into the trench and he goes into the place. And I was just in awe. I was quite frankly in awe of this film. And I love the fact that because of the way of the film, because you're following these guys, it enabled you to do the whole thing where they walk into this room, they meet this person. Oh, well-known British actor. He plays this role. He's there for 5 minutes. They go. You never see him again. They go somewhere else. Well-known British actor. There for 5 minutes. You never see him again. And but I thought that the film was actually really, really affecting. I thought that the performances were really good as well. I mean, I think the central performances. It's the fact that the first time you see Schofield and Blake, I feel like almost within 30 seconds, they've told you who these people are. They don't give you like a whole bunch of backstory that, oh, this person has this thing at home and this person is waiting for... They don't give you a lot of that, but you sort of know these characters. You look at one of them and one of them has almost sort of like this sort of shell-shocked thing throughout the whole film. And the other one is kind of like, a little bit more of a cheeky chappy. And I just thought that the performances were great and filled in a lot of the space that the film doesn't give you space, because it's like, look, we've got to move on. We've got to move on. We've got to... And it doesn't waste time setting things up. It just throws you straight into it. And even though I am not as big an Apocalypse Now fan as you are, Sean, I have to admit I did think this is a little bit... It's like an odyssey. This film is not really... It's not really a war film. It's an odyssey.
I mean, there were some lucky shots in it in certain places, and which I could have, if I'd have had a different mode of head on, I could have said, that's incredibly lucky, or this hadn't worked. But to me, it was a journey. It was a journey, an odyssey, if you like. An odyssey of like Homer almost.
I think it has a lot in common with the Greek things like Odysseus.
Yeah, with Odysseus and all the people he met on the way. Yeah.
But no, I mean,
So
film.
ratings. What do you rate it?
Well, it's got to be 5-star from me.
And I'm going to say hands down, it is by far the best thing I have ever seen Sam Mendes do.
Yeah,
I think it's the best film he's ever made. As far as I'm concerned.
Actually, I'll tell you what's quite funny today, and it'll probably be on later tonight, 11:30 tonight on Radio 4. But at 4:30 they had the film program on.
Yeah,
and it was talking about, and they had you probably need to listen to it. They had the cinematographer on talking about.
Oh, Roger Deakins.
Roger Deakins. He is on there talking. So
I'm sorry, but if he doesn't get the Oscar for best cinematography, I don't know what will.
He's been robbed. Yeah.
But he's on the film. He's on the film program, which is repeated tonight about 11 or 11, something like that. Well, I'll probably be tucked away in bed.
Well, the thing is with Roger Deakins is that because he's got the record for the most Oscar nominations without winning. He's been nominated something like 13 times before he finally won one for Blade Runner 2049. And I think it's going to be a bit like, London buses. You wait ages for one. Because if he doesn't get the Oscar for cinematography, I haven't seen any other film this year that matches it. That matches that what you think about what had to go into making these sort of like landscapes, like the bit where they're in the city and the whole city's on fire. I mean, come on. Anyway.
Yeah,
so anyway, Sharon, what would you give it?
I would give it a very high 4. I would say it's not perfect for me, but it's up there. So I would give it a high 4.
Yeah. Okay. So Sean says 5. Sharon says 4.
Yeah. Got to be Oscars all the way.
I think this is, as I said, this is the first film that I've seen this year. I mean, somebody when I said first film that I think deserves an Oscar. One of my friends, Tandy, who is in Australia, she was like, "Oh, Joker," and I was just like, "No, don't even do that. Don't even try."
Doesn't really compare.
It does not even compare. I know a lot of people like that film. Quite frankly, I'm baffled, but yeah, it doesn't even compare. I just thought that this deserves it, and I was worrying about it. I was like 3, 5. And I think purely because I came out of the cinema going, okay, that's it. Just give that film deserves the Oscar. I'm gonna have to flip over into a 5.
Cool.
Yeah, okay, so that is 1917 Gone. As you can imagine, we could talk a lot more about that film because the film is awesome. Just go watch the film. Go watch the film and get in touch with us on Twitter or on Facebook or something and tell us what you thought as well because honestly, it is the film's a marvel. Now, we're going to go into Netflix